Nancy, Bess, and George are going to the Oakwood Inn for a chocolate festival. Bess eats a ton of chocolate, and she dates two different hot guys. Typical Bess. Argle Fump Book Review. Argle Fump Book Review. Let's meet our suspects. Samantha Patton is in charge of the event. She's a little in over her head, so it doesn't take much for her to have an emotional outburst. Her overbearing mother keeps trying to take back control of the hotel. Her stepbrother Jake is doing a lot of construction work, and he feels underappreciated. The main attraction of the event is handsome TV star Brock Sawyer. He used to date Samantha. Samantha's current boyfriend, Tim Kruger, is more than a little jealous. Tim punches Brock in the face for putting his arm around Samantha. Nancy breaks up the fist fight. She doesn't cringe in fright like she does on the book's cover. Bess asks Brock if he's okay, then immediately asks for his autograph. Smooth, Bess. The first chocolate event is a contest. Guess how many chocolate bars Brock weighs to win them all. They have a scale set up, but it breaks and Brock falls into a vat of melted chocolate. How delicious! How terrible! A man named Dan Avery takes pictures with a fancy camera both times Brock is injured. Nancy overhears Dan on the phone saying, "I'll get the actor." Nancy really should confront him right away, instead of waiting halfway through the book before following up on this. For dessert that night, they have a chocolate model of Brock's head. It's covered with ants. Yuck. Nancy's smart enough to realize 3 sabotage incidents in 3 chapters means there's a mystery afoot. But Samantha thinks they're all just accidents. She remains unconvinced when Nancy finds a jar of ants hidden in the kitchen, and when Nancy finds the scales were sabotaged. Samantha finally believes Nancy when Brock is poisoned. He samples a new type of candy in front of a crowd, then collapses to the ground. He's rushed to the hospital, and I am dead certain no one will buy that chocolate ever. Samantha's mom becomes the prime suspect. She's been in the kitchen a lot lately, and she always hated Brock. Nancy learns there's more to the story. Brock's father cheated the family out of a ton of money, leading to the death of Mom's husband. Mom is perfectly pleasant when Nancy questions her, but as soon as Nancy mentions the dead husband, Mom turns nasty. That night, Mom shows off a chocolate volcano dessert. You set liquid on fire, and it goes down the size of a volcano. That seems fun, also a terrible waste of chocolate. Mom picks Nancy to be her assistant when, flour falls from the ceiling, it catches fire and explodes. Nancy quickly puts out the fire with a fire extinguisher. As usual for the Nancy Drew series, every single suspect has no alibi for the incident, so we can't rule anyone out. Nancy and her friends visit Brock in the hospital, where they twice chase after Dan Avery. Dan confesses he's a trashy tabloid reporter. He is a pretty sleazy guy. He reminds Nancy that Brock put a special sweetener inside all of his food before eating it. Sure enough, that's how the culprit poisoned Brock. Nancy searches the suspect's rooms, and she finds the sweetener inside Samantha's closet. While I like this part, I would like to complain that we're 76% of the way through the book. This plot twist is spoiled by the suspect list at the start of the book. That's a pretty late book spoiler to start with. The culprit sends Nancy a note telling her to show up at the unfinished East Wing at 7 o'clock. This is obviously a trap. Nancy asks Bess and George to help protect her. Wait, no. Nancy's feeling stupid today, so she asks Bess and George to cover for her absence while she visits the culprit alone. She goes to the dark, abandoned area by herself, where the culprit throws a chisel at her head and she falls into a hole. She almost dies, but luckily she pulls herself back up to safety. Jake becomes the prime suspect when it's learned he personally handled Brock's sweetener just before the poisoning. For the big finale, Nancy summons all the suspects together and confronts each one in turn. She lies and tells them Brock just died in the hospital. Brock enters the room shortly afterwards. Everyone panics, and Jake gives himself away as the culprit. Jake runs to a workshop so he can blow up a gas line and kill everyone. Nancy and her friends stall Jake with questions. He explains all the details of his plan. Surprisingly, he wasn't trying to kill Brock with poison. That was just an accident. Jake only wanted to sabotage the chocolate festival and bring shame to Samantha. Jake fails to notice when Tim slips away. Tim calls the police and turns off the power, bringing a quick end to Jake's schemes. There's a happy ending where Tim and Samantha get engaged, Mom stops trying to run the inn, and Brock decides to take Bess out on a date instead of pressing charges. Not charges against her. I'm sorry, that was an awkwardly phrased sentence. The end. Post-book follow-up. This book is okay. It's pretty typical for the series, and a lot of the events in this book appear in other books. Like someone catches on fire, and we trick the culprit into confessing with a back from the dead trick. Why, in just the previous book, Nancy gets an anonymous note to meet at an abandoned location where the culprit pushes her to her death, only she grabs a beam and climbs back up to safety. That is a pretty specific setup used 2 books in a row. This book is kind of tame for the Nancy Drew Files series, which is supposed to be for older, more mature readers. Maybe it was originally written for the series for younger readers. You wouldn't have to do much to make it fit the younger reader series, besides emphasize that Brock's poisoning was an accident, not attempted murder. An explanation along those lines could easily fit in the chapter where the police discuss the poison with Nancy. That's the same chapter Brock is hospitalized. While I'd say this is a pretty standard Nancy Drew book, I wouldn't say it's that bad. The chocolate festival is a nice setting, and Nancy's friends were fun. It's just that the mystery feels a bit generic, and by the books, I couldn't bring myself to care about any of these characters one way or the other, besides for Brock. I give Nancy Drew Files number 61, Sweet Revenge, a 4 out of 10.